Hello, 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 and a very warm welcome to our brand spanking new show, Her Legacy, Our World. My name is Sasha Benson, and I am your host tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on Cleveland TV. Tonight, I'm going to be chatting to an old friend of mine, a phenomenal woman, a woman that's making waves in life, Nicole Netshivhungululu. Please tell me how I pronounce your name.
well,
It's the
if I'm to be
longest name I've seen.
right, well, if I'm to be honest, my husband also says I butcher the surname wrong, but it's Netshivhungululu. So it's a vendor surname, and unfortunately, I butcher it as well because I've got the Shona tongue, which is different to the vendor dialect. So yeah.
Okay, great. Welcome to the show, Nikki. It's so good to have you. It's so good to see your beautiful face.
Thank you so much for having me, Sasha, and I'm so honored to be on it as well.
Awesome. So, Nikki, when I was reading your biography, I didn't even know where to pick from, where to start from. You're founder of ICCIN. You're founder of Africa Rise. You're a podcaster. You're a co-founder of Kanya Reading Foundation, and you're a co-founder and CSO of Sales Hub for Africa. Like, if people ask you what you do, what is your go-to answer?
Well, my go-to answer is everything and anything God calls me to do, because I believe we have a limitless God. So I can't put a cap to what I do. So I cannot even put myself in a box. Wherever I'm needed to do something or minister something, I jump in. So I always tell my kids, there's no limit to what you can do, and never box yourself to say this is what I do only, because you would actually be very shocked. You can do so much more as to just boxing yourself. So my go-to is anything and everything.
I love that. I mean, the sky is not the limit because there is no limit. So I love that. So just tell me a little bit, what is ICCIN?
Okay, so ISIN is my name spelled backwards.
Awesome.
So it's Nikki, but it's ISIN spelled backwards. And the tail to it is I have seen. So it was a little play on the words because it was meant to say I've seen the glory of God, but it's I've seen. So it is a creative brand agency. I've always loved advertising. I've always loved media, and I've always loved branding. And so ISIN has always been a dream of mine, I think, since childhood, where I've told myself I'm going to own an agency and it's going to be global. And in that agency, it will be a world changer somehow, some way, whether I'm touching a brand, changing a brand, building a brand, or making a social digital footprint for someone. It was something where it was intentional and impactful in what I wanted to do.
That's amazing. There's so much to even go through. I don't even know how to unpack it. But tell me about how you started ICCIN, or ISIN, as you call it. What I want to know is, when you left high school, or rather university, or your tertiary education, your last form of education, what did you then say to yourself, and how did you go from that to founding ISIN? Or is that the first thing that you found?
Yeah, so ISIN is the first thing that I founded. So when I left for ISIN, when I started ISIN,
how did you get there?
Okay, so when I left university, rather, I'd always wanted to go into the advertising space. However, representation of a person who looks like me in the advertising space wasn't as dominant back then. It was a very Caucasian dominant industry. So I left varsity, started working as a media buyer for a company. And I think the frustration I kept having was, no, man, I'm not seeing people who are like me in this industry and who are making waves. And I think the frustration was, I want to have that aspect to be able to do what I can do without somebody telling me what to do, when to take leave, and everything. And so I then took the jump 2 years into having left varsity. So the dream was always there to say, you are going to start an agency. So back then, when you're a young kid, you can dream and not be scared. So I think when I got into varsity, the fear of, Nikki, you're a woman, and this industry doesn't actually take women on. This industry doesn't take a black woman on top of that. So the fear kind of crept in. But I think 2 years in, I was like, you know what? I'm taking the jump. I'm just going to start this thing. Whether it flies, whether it doesn't, I mean, God, you've got this. And then I just started the agency. But I think my main drive was to mainly have that representation of a person of color in the ad industry. And if I'm to say today, there are a lot of people who are now taking that gap, because for one or child to say they want to do certain industry, they have to see a person like them to be like, oh, it's possible. I can do it. And yeah.
I love that. And, when we're talking about a person like me, when you're saying that there was no one like you, no representation, we're talking about a female, we're talking about an African, we're talking about a female in Africa, you're talking about a female in a male-dominated area. And so I love that you took the bull by the horns and you said, let's go for it, let's do this, I can do it. And what I want to know is, so from ISIN, where did you move to? Because I see you have like so many different things that you founded. So from ISIN, where did you get to?
So with ISIN, it was always there. And then my daughter, so my sister, so my daughter started writing books at the age of 7. So she'll take bond paper and just start writing books. And my sister was like, guys, this girl has a talent. You guys are sitting on a talent. So I was like, awesome, let me take her on and see what we can do. So we had visited a disadvantaged community at that time. And she was like, Mom, I don't understand how those kids do not have books. And we have a privilege to have books and everything. Because I'd always taught her that reading is a place of where you can escape. You can go to anywhere in the world through reading. You can imagine and so forth. So she had a love for books. And then her heart was, she was like, I want to start a company where I can give back to people who do not have the books and everything. And so within Africa, actually, it's quite a large percentage. A lot of children, I think it is 60%, I stand to be corrected, but 60% of children in Africa do not have books or do not have the opportunity to actually read books at a young age and so forth. And the literacy is quite not a big thing. So her heart was to actually make sure that that got filled and everything. So I was like, awesome, let's start the company. And obviously with her being a little girl, she cannot be the sole person with the company. So I just was like, I will help you co-found your dream, and we push it. And then that's how Kanya is her name. And the reason why she decided to name it Kanya, for her, Kanya means light. So she was like, I'm bringing light to the community. And we started Kanya Reading Foundation. She managed to raise she had a campaign. So our goal, and this is where you see children have big faith. So our original goal was to say we're going to get 1,000 books to then give to the disadvantaged community. But lo and behold, we collected like 5,000 books through another friend of mine who actually owned a bookshop in Monte Cassino, and we had lots of people come in and donate books, and then that's how she then started giving books to different disadvantaged communities, to the children and everything. And that's how Kanya Reading Foundation was birthed, if I can put it in the most simplest terms. Yeah.
Oh, that is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So I remember a couple of years ago seeing you talking about the Kanya Reading Foundation, or rather talking about your daughter having written a book. I want to talk about this book. First of all, what is this book about? I am keen to read this book myself because I want to know the mind of a 7-year-old.
So her first book was The Rat Who's Scared of the Dark. And so her book was in the essence of trying to encourage children not to be scared. And so she wrote many other books there on forward, but sadly we couldn't get a good publisher to publish the book. However, I think for me, just seeing her wanting to change the industry or change the world of a young child, to say you don't have to be scared of the dark, this is what I'm going to write. So it was a book about a rat. That was the first book that she wrote, a book about a rat who was afraid of the dark and then overcame his fear of darkness. And then she went on to write other books and so forth.
This is awesome for me because it just speaks a lot to your parenting. That's how I see these kind of things. It speaks to your parenting. You've obviously encouraged her, or you've obviously told her that it's possible, because there's no way that a 7-year-old can write a book and want to publish it and want to inspire and motivate other people or other children. and not have someone strong that they're standing on,
Yeah.
and I think this speaks a lot to your parenting. And I'm keen to know, like, is this the same type of childhood that you had? How do you parent? Like, what is your parenting philosophy? How did you create a little being that's so imaginative and so inspirational? I mean, she should be on the show herself.
Right. Well, I think I can attest it mainly to my mom and dad. Well, my mom, because I think my mom and dad were born again Christians. So I think with them and their inbuilt thing and teaching us that we can do anything through Christ. So literally, they would always remind us that nothing is impossible. My dad would always say that never aim for the stars or never aim for the moon. You can aim to whatever you want to do, and you can do it. You can do it. In our house, there was that thing like you cannot. There's no word like I can't, and everything. And I think growing up with that, and then understanding that the children that we were given, we're just merely stewards of them. So if anything, the wisdom that we get in how to raise a child, I think from what I've seen with my mom was she would always pray. She would always be like, God, how am I to handle this child? Because I think for her, raising us in that time, because when I wanted to study advertising, and back then every child was doing either law, accounting, and it was a specific thing. And I come in and I'm like, I want to do advertising. And I think having her accept that that's fine. If that's fine, every relative would have probably been like, why is she going to do advertising? What will advertising do? What will money, But she was able to see the potential in it. And I guess it's also because of the prayer that she would do and getting the wisdom and so forth. So I think I carried that coming into our parenting with my husband as well, where we understood they're not our kids and there's literally no limit to what they can do. We are just merely vessels of these little children, and it's us seeking wisdom and finding out, okay, how are we to raise these children? How am I to continue pushing this child, even if she comes and, God forbid, but if she was to come and say she wants to stop school, or my son is to say, I want to stop school, I want to pursue coding, I need to be like, okay, if that's what God wants, let it be, and so forth. But yeah.
Wow. It's rare in an African community to have parents that are so supportive, and parents that yes, you will get parents that will pray for you. A lot of the time we have, back-breaking moms that break their backs praying for us night and day and night. But then a lot of us don't have the support structure that we need, which is what you've given and what your parents have given to you. So I think that's absolutely phenomenal, the way that you're raising her in the way that she should go. And I love that, you keep referring back to how you're stewards of, these children. And I always say to people that these kids are not mine. I'm not raising my children. I'm raising somebody's husband. I'm raising members of society. I'm raising men that will hopefully become men of valor and men of honor and men of this, that, and the other. So I myself have 2 boys. So it's incredible when you can understand what God has called your child to be and what God has called you to be as a parent, and you marry the two. The walk becomes a lot easier, the journey becomes a lot easier, and you find, God will really guide your steps and take you on the way that you should go. I mean, I almost get an amen for that.
Amen, girl. Yes.
Nikki, so you've told us about ISIN, you've told us about, you've told us about Kanya's Reading Foundation, and now I want to talk about Africa Arise. That name just caught me because, I mean, this is a TV show specifically for Africans in the diaspora. So I want to know, what is it about Africa Arise? What are we talking about here?
So Africa Arise was birthed from the aspect of, I got tired of hearing in the media stories being told about Africa from the narrative of people who are not Africans. And I'm like, that's not our story. We've got the everyday African, from the person who sells tomatoes on the street to the person who's probably...
Cleve Nard in Diaspora Television. is an internet online TV service. What sets us apart is a unique combination of hit African content, first and exclusive international free movies, series, musics, news, events, documentaries, tourism, teleshopping shows, youth TV programs, and live interviews. Clevenard Diaspora Television is available throughout sub-Saharan Africa and to the diaspora markets worldwide. Take your entertainment with you wherever you go. Watch on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, depending on your device. Watch free movies with Clevenard Movies Television. Stop searching for free movies websites and watch Clevenard Movies Television. Watch your favorite African shows anywhere at any time. Don't forget to check out our top 5 TV channels created to get you informed. TV1, Clevenard in Diaspora Television. TV2, Clevenard Youth Television. TV3, Clevenard Movies Television. TV4, Clevenard Teleshopping Television. TV5, Clevenard Tourism Television. To start watching, sign up at www.clevenard.com and follow the easy steps. Once you're done, log into the Clevenard website or app on your device, click on any one of our 5 TV channels, and hit play. We will be very satisfied and happy to welcome you to our team as one of our new business partners. Contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com.
The street to the person who's probably making it in the office. We all have unique stories, and I've always had this desire to say we share our unique stories. Africa is not behind. You know, when people say, no, but we are Africa, it will take us time to get where we need to get to. And I'm like, guys, Africa is arising. Africa is where everything happens. We don't have to be, and I'm not taking anything away from America or the European nation. You know, they've got their own accolades, but so does Africa, and the richness in Africa that we have. And just to say, I am proudly African. And African is not a referral to say, because I'm black, I'm African. Even an Indian, white, whoever they are, if you're born within Africa, you have that proudness of Africa. So Africa Rise was just birthed from the essence of, so it started off as a blog, and then I took it to Facebook, where I wanted to tell the everyday African story, from the lady who sells tomatoes on the street. And the reason why I wanted that, I wanted our children and the next generations to come to say, we don't have to, and I'm not taking away anything from Richard Branson or Beyonce, but we've also got African icons that we can look to. And I mean, Africa has an entrepreneurial spirit, Sasha. Like the fact that our parents or you know, I come from Zim just like you, and you remember the market where you'd see people come and sell tomatoes, you'll see people come and sell different kinds of vegetables, and that alone is an entrepreneurial journey that is not to be shunned upon, but it's an amazing journey. And I wanted an African child to know that it's possible. You can do it. You don't have to look to America and say, one day I want to be like Richard Branson, one day, and not to take away from them, but one day you can look and say, one day I want to be like that entrepreneurial lady who sold umbida at the corner of the road, because she has entrepreneurial aspects to who she is. And so that was my heart's desire or heartbeat to say, Africa arise. It's time we got proud of who we are as Africans. It's time we got proud of saying, I'm not wearing Louis Vuitton, I'm wearing a Zimbabwean brand, and I'm proud to wear it. You know, it's time we became proud of who we are. And instead of us looking out to the world looks into Africa and say, we need to follow their trend. So that was where Africa Arise birthed. I had put it on pause, but this year I'm like, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back again. Yeah.
Yes. So now what platform do you use to, to advertise Africa Arise, or where do we see this platform? Is it a website? Is it a show? What is it?
So Africa Rise, so that's why I said I'm bringing it back. So Africa Rise started off on Facebook to write long stories, but now my daughter is like, Mom, Facebook is for old people. And so now I think this year going forward, we're now going to go onto every kind of platform to actually reach every kind of generation. So Africa Rise is under construction, but do look out for notifications on Facebook where we will now be putting prints to
Not
every digital.
Facebook, ma'am. Not Facebook.
So you see, it reveals my age with when it actually started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So now I can see that you're, based on what we've talked about so far, you're in a lot of corporate and you're in a lot of charitable works. How do you balance yourself as a mom, as a wife, as a founder of so many multiple avenues of, business and so on and so forth? How do you balance all of that? How do we say, I'm now talking to Nikki the mom? At what point, you know?
Sure. I'm sad. I always say to people, is there really a thing of finding the actual balance? And I think from one of my old pastors, Paul Nyamuda, he made it very clear on how we take off the different hats. And he made it so practical for me in the essence of when I finish work, literally when I'm driving home, it's me removing that hat off. Whatever I was doing, whether I was being a CSO, whatever the case is, I'm driving back home and now I'm putting on my mom hat and picking up the kids and being so intentional about being involved. If a call comes in from work or whatever, in that moment, I will not pick it up because at that moment, it's mom time. It's between me and my children. After, when we get home, take off that hat to now have that intentionality of saying, let me be the wife I could be to my husband. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I think with what Pastor Paul Nyamuda actually described on how we wear different hats, it's just a matter of physically and intentionally removing those hats and saying, this is my time now, and intentionally setting time aside. Because to say we have a balance, it's like the reality is we live in such a busy world. Something will always come up. But if you're intentionally going to say, I'm spending time with my husband and I'm going to put my phone on silent. We're doing date nights because, life gets busy. So it's only on date nights where we can truly connect, where we're not talking about the children. We're not talking about running the household or whatever the case is. With the children, if I can intentionally say I'm going to go out with my son and he's going to go ride a bicycle. And it's just that moment of, I will be with my son. My phone, try not to look at it and be so intentional about being that. So I think the one lesson I've learned I don't even want to say I've found the balance because sometimes I stumble, but I think the one lesson is being intentional, being so intentional about the time we spend. The same way when you do a task, when you get to work, from 8 to 5, I'm doing this job. So the same, we should be intentional about our lives in every facet to say, I'm going to be intentional about being a mom. I'm going to be intentional about being a wife. I'm going to be intentional about being a friend. Because the reality is life is busy, but if you don't put aside time, life will run you and not the other way around. You will not be able to treat life well and so forth.
I think you must be a phenomenal woman to be able to juggle so many balls, regardless of, when you're talking about being intentional, taking off the one hat to put on the other. You have got to be a strong Black African woman to be able to do some of these things. And I think, kudos to you for being able to juggle all of that. Speaking of husbands, I saw you once or a couple of times on Conversations with Nikki, or I think it was that, or it might have been a different podcast. Was that a duo with your husband for your show, or was it just for that period, or is that the structure of your show, your podcast?
So the conversation, Nikki, was entirely to empower, inspire women and so forth. And then I had gone through a dip with my husband in our marriage. And I think the frustration I'd had in the community we live in, the vulnerability is not a popular thing amongst anybody. And so I was like, you know what, God has done great, because there was a period where my husband and I had actually separated due to some marital issues and so forth, but God decided he's going to bring us back together. And I was like, that's a testimony I cannot keep to myself. It's something I would love to share with other people and have his side of the story and my side of the story, and us just become vulnerable to married couples. It was mainly to married couples, or if you're going to get married, just the reality of the challenges you may face, the reality of the enemy will come and attack your marriage. It's a reality, you know. Marriage it's a beautiful institution. It's a God institution, but it's an institution like what Miles Monroe says. It's two imperfect people coming to a perfect union. So there will be, you know, you will rub each other's heads there and there and everything. And I think people are just, there's no vulnerability in it. And it was a moment where I was like, it's a testimony I really wanted to share to the people out there who listen to the podcast, to just say God did great by brought us back together. There was restoration. And it's not to say if there's something that happens in your marriage, it's the end of your marriage. It's over. Life ends, or whatever the case is. Yeah. To always say, you know, if you're a person who serves God and knows God, that God can restore God, and you are able to forgive, and, you know, and not to say that telling you to stay married if you're in a bad marriage or whatever the case is, but just the understanding of seeking godly counsel in your marriage. And so I think that was it was a very intimate point in my life. I had to open up. I was a bit scared of doing it, but I was like, I'm not going to allow the enemy to rob that testimony of how great God was, because it was a rough road, but then we came together. So my husband and I doing that duo, it was just to share that part. So again, conversations with Nikki again this year is also starting afresh. So it was just that season where we then were like, okay, let's be vulnerable and share the testimony. Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. Not a lot of people are vulnerable, like you said. It is such a touchy subject, and I mean, my question would be: did you not get any backlash for putting so much private and intimate stuff out there? Did you receive backlash?
If you're not getting backlash, if you're not getting any backlash, like I go to Charis Bible College, and they like to say, if you're not getting opposition, it means you're going in the same road as the enemy. So in life, you always get backlash. It's a reality, whether it's a good thing, whether you're doing a bad thing, someone will always have something to say, and that's the reality of life. And yes, we did get backlash from certain people, but you know, for me, it's like, I'm not here to please you. If anything, I'm here to bring glory back to God. So it's like, okay, that's the reality.
It looks like it didn't stop you from, you know, continuing, and I think that is something to really be proud of. And that's, you know, the backlash is the reason why a lot of people will not, you know, come out and say, okay, I'm having problems, I need help. People are afraid to be told, well, you failed in your marriage or you failed in your relationship. If they come out and say, I'm struggling, I can't come up for air, someone help me. And better still, I think it would even be more difficult to come back together and then say, hey guys, this is our story and this is what we went through and you can do it too. So I think really it was a very inspirational thing, and I cannot tell you. I think it was during lockdown, maybe. Was it during lockdown?
Yeah, it was during lockdown.
Definitely inspired, and I felt very connected, because, you know, I felt like there are a lot of people out there who are probably going through the same and just don't know a way out. You know, I know of someone who's had some serious marital problems, but then, you know, when you come out and say to your aunt or your uncle, or to your spouse's aunt or uncle, or whoever that you're supposed to be talking to about it, they turn around and say, well, you must be doing something wrong. Why did he attack you? Why did he tear your face up, you know, or whatever it is? And it's not okay. Stories like yours, even though that wasn't the story, but stories like yours encourages people, and, you know, it gives people some kind of, you know, hint into, or peek into what marriage can be and can become. So I think that was really awesome. That was really awesome to watch.
Thank you.
So last but not least, because we're like running out of time, I just want to know, what are your new ventures? Tell me a little bit about your Botswana stuff. I saw you doing some stuff in Botswana. Tell me about your new ventures. You said you're bringing the Kanya Reading Foundation. Oh no, sorry, not that one. Which one are you bringing back? The podcast you're bringing back, and Africa.
Yeah.
So what are your new ventures for this year? Do you have any, or is your focus going to be to bring back or revive and bring life back into the ones that, were no longer there?
So just to touch on the Botswana trip, so that was a missions trip. I go to Charis Bible College. So it was the second year, in my second year curriculum. For you to complete your second year curriculum, you have to go and do missions. So you have to go, they give you a list of countries. You have to pray about which country God is leading you to. And at that time, God led me to Botswana. So it was part of the curriculum, but it was a life-changing moment, if I can put it across. We went to a town called Mahung, yeah, and it was such a beautiful experience. I literally saw the book of Acts come alive. And so, yeah, if anyone is interested in wanting to have a life-changing experience, there's Charis Bible College. They're having an open day in Feb, so they can check that out on Facebook.
Okay.
But I think my new ventures for this year is to revive, like I said, to revive Africa Rise, and to also revive Conversations with Nikki, and to take Conversations with Nikki globally. But my first place that I want to take it to, because we used to do events, I want to go to Zim. So it'll be Harare, that will start launching it in Harare and in Bulawayo. And any other venture, well, we'll see where God takes me. And then I'll just do as God says, But I think right now my main focus was the Conversations with Nikki, Africa Rise, and continuing to impact and inspire and empower where I can. Yeah.
That's amazing, Nikki. You are a bag full of hope, and you're just bursting and bubbling over, and it's so contagious. Like, if there is anyone that is watching this show tonight, or whenever you're watching this, wherever you're watching it from, keep looking out for Nikki or Nicole Nechi. Let me try and say that. Netshivhungululu. Keep a lookout. Look out for her podcast. She's phenomenal. She is a phenomenal woman. She is leaving a legacy, and she's trailblazing through the charities. Just look out for her, and let's empower one another as women. We are working so hard. We are doing so many things, and we're carrying so many mantles, and we're wearing so many different hats and crowns. And we need to show off our crowns. We are creating a legacy, and you're living in that world. This is why the show is called Her Legacy, Our World. So you've impacted my world, Nikki. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I just didn't know where to even start with your 101 titles. Next time we're going to have you back on the show, and we're going to focus on one thing. So
yes, no, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing, Sasha. Like, when I saw it, I was like, this is a movement that cannot be, one has to join it. So thank you so much. Thank you for shedding the light, empowering the women out there, and letting us know what's possible, like letting our children even know what's possible. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on CleveNet TV. This is Sasha, and I am your host tonight. I was your host tonight of Her Legacy, Our World. Until next time, take care.